the Q&A with the Department of Education STEM team. I'm Amanda McCammon with STEM Synergy and Keep Indiana Learning. And we are super excited to have our friends from DOE here again this year to talk about the changes in the STEM school certification process and some other priorities and initiatives that they have going on around STEM. So super excited to have them here. They're going to be taking the meat of the session today, and then I'll wrap it up at the end with some additional updates from STEM Synergy and Keep Indiana Learning. So I'm going to turn it over to Jake Carrussel with DOE.
Thanks so much, Amanda, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll start by introducing a couple members of the IDOE STEM team here, and then we'll share some exciting updates and initiatives related to work across the state in STEM areas, and then we'll jump into some of those pre-submitted Q&A pieces and share some information more specifically about the STEM Certified Schools program. And so if you do have additional questions throughout the presentation, if you don't mind using the link that should be showing up at the top of your screen, you can submit a question there, and then I'll make sure to address it throughout the presentation. So thanks again for joining us this morning. My name is Jake Carrussel. I am the Assistant Director for STEM and Computer Science here at the Indiana Department of Education. I've been here for a little over 4 years, both in my current capacity and previously as the computer science specialist. And prior to joining the department, I served as a school corporation instructional and technology coach, as well as a high school math and computer science teacher. So happy to be here with you this morning, and I'll pass it over to Mackenzie to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Cox. I'm the secondary math specialist here at IDOE. I've been here for a little over a year, and prior to joining the department, I was a high school math teacher and really enjoyed working with math in that capacity. So I'll kick it over to Kaylee.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Kaylee Arndt and I'm a STEM specialist at the IDOE. Before joining the STEM team here, I was a first and second grade teacher for 10 years. And I am really happy that you're here joining us today.
Great. So just to quickly go over our agenda for this morning, we've already kind of gone through some introductions. Now we'll move into just providing some general updates about different programs and opportunities in STEM across the state of Indiana. And then again, we'll go through some of those pre-submitted Q&A questions. So we'll get started. As far as updates in STEM areas in Indiana schools, we did want to highlight just a few things. Back in January, the Department of Education did release its priorities for STEM education, and these really serve as sort of a lens for a lot of our work in this area that's taken place so far this year and will take place into the future. So the first priority is to refine STEM pedagogy with research-based best practices. So it's essential to integrate all STEM disciplines as much as possible, utilizing inquiry and problem-based approaches to learning. And this is just in an effort to promote the development of content knowledge, but also develop employability skills such as critical thinking and collaboration that we also know are just crucial to the future success of our students. We believe that these authentic and integrated experiences can help students to better understand what STEM could look like in their future education and post-secondary endeavors. The second priority is to develop STEM leaders and educators, and a primary mechanism for working toward this is through the implementation of an instructional coaching model, which we will share a little bit more about here in the next couple of slides. So there are two different ways that schools can engage in those efforts. And again, I'll share some more information about that here in a second. And then the third priority is to increase access to STEM courses, programs, and resources. And so there are a variety of sort of sub-strategies related to this particular priority. Certainly, the STEM Certified Schools program is sort of an effort to move forward in all of these areas. And so I believe Mackenzie or Kaylee will drop the link to the full document that describes those priorities in the chat. And so a little more information about that STEM instructional coaching program. It's, again, a key implementation strategy for the priorities for education that I described on the last slide. And it did kick off this summer with implementation of training, intensive training for our first cohort of coaches. And so there is a cluster of schools that are engaged specifically in the STEM side of this work. There is sort of a parallel effort in the literacy space, specifically focusing on implementing the science of reading in grades K through 2. And so on the STEM side, we're targeting grades 4 through 8. And again, STEM instructional coaches have been identified by schools locally and have been provided with tools and resources and training to implement STEM instructional coaching models and cycles in their schools. And this is a cooperative effort between IDOE, regional education service centers, the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning at the University of Indianapolis, as well as the Hunt Institute and 5 Star Technologies. So through this collaborative effort, instructional coaches in schools will receive training and support and curriculum and other resources to help move STEM forward in their buildings. And again, sort of work towards refining STEM pedagogical practices, developing STEM educators and leaders, and expanding access to STEM programming in schools for students. And so again, the sort of first cohort of this initiative did kick off this fall. And later in the year, we will be looking to sort of recruit the next group of schools to be involved, starting with cohort 2 that will be involved with training next summer and instructional coaching efforts next school year. So stay tuned for more information about that, and definitely reach out if you're interested or have any questions. So again, this is just sort of reiterating the timeline. So the current schools that are part of cohort 1 will receive support this school year and next school year minimally. And then again, we will be looking to identify some additional schools to be involved as the work moves forward into next summer and next school year. Another layer of this involves training for school and corporation administrators, as well as faculty members of educational preparation programs, those folks that are working to prepare pre-service teachers to be in classrooms in the future years. So very exciting work. And again, if you have questions or are interested, definitely reach out and let us know. We're happy to provide information as we have it available. And now I'm going to kick it over to Kaylee.
So the IDOE STEM Certified Schools program prioritizes the teaching of science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines, which we know are critical to preparing students for 21st century success. The STEM certified schools exemplify a highly non-traditional approach to education by employing a great deal of inquiry, project-based learning, community engagement, entrepreneurship, student-centered classrooms, and out-of-school STEM activities. Throughout the certification process, schools compile evidence and data from their STEM programs and create a Google site that paints a picture of all the great STEM work happening in their building. DOE staff then scores each school site, and if enough points are earned, members of the STEM team visit the school where each school's STEM team has the chance to show us around and share their STEM journey and all the awesome things happening in their buildings. And currently, there are 108 schools in Indiana with this STEM certification designation. And if you are a school that has glanced at the certification process before, we want to share that guidance has been updated. So the 2022-2023 K-8 STEM certification change guide for required evidence will help you wrap your mind around all of the changes that have been made to the K-8 rubric. And then I'm also going to drop this link in the chat while I turn it over to Mackenzie to talk about secondary.
Thanks, Kaylee. So brand new for this year is our secondary STEM certification guidance. And after engaging with stakeholders from K-12 education and STEM fields, we created a newer certification process that accounts for variability in the secondary STEM programming by allowing schools to define their own STEM program. Additionally, schools who complete the application process but are not quite ready to receive full certification will receive the designation of developing and invited to a learning series that starts in early 2023. I'll also drop the link to our guide in the chat as well.
And so before we dive into the Q&A portion of this session as well, I did want to highlight just some updates with regard to newly adopted science and computer science standards. They were updated standards were adopted by the State Board of Education in early June this past summer. And so just to raise some awareness related to what those changes kind of look like, the new science standards are heavily based on the next generation science standards, which do incorporate 3 dimensions of science instruction, those being the disciplinary core ideas, which is really like the content piece, but then also the science and engineering practices, as well as cross-cutting concepts. And we do really believe, because of this 3-dimensional approach and a focus on phenomena-based teaching and learning experiences, that the adoption of standards of this form do really align with the STEM priorities that were outlined earlier in this presentation, and really do promote this idea of providing high quality science instruction, but also those integrated inquiry, project, and problem-based learning experiences for students. And then similarly, new computer science standards were adopted for grades K through 8, and they are heavily based on the national standards from the Computer Science Teachers Association. A few changes to just be aware of. Formerly, there were 5 core concepts delineated within the computer science standards, and now there are 6, with the additional one being digital literacy. And then we also feel that these standards align well with the priorities for STEM education and really promote those interdisciplinary connections, and not only the content related to computer science, but also practices related to what computer scientists do. So we're excited about those. And if you need any additional resources or support throughout the implementation process of those, we do invite you to reach out and let us know how you can help as well. And now on to the Q&A. So we'll go through pre-submitted Q&A questions. And again, if additional questions pop up throughout the session, feel free to use the link that's at the top of your screen to submit those questions. And we'll be sure to get you answers or responses to those as well.
Okay, so our first question was, what does the K-8 STEM certification process look like? So I wanted to give you a brief overview of that. So step 1 is your school leadership team members will conduct a self-evaluation using the IDOE STEM self-evaluation tool. And you might take a close look at the key terms at the bottom of the rubric or the references tab of the rubric for clarification on elements. Step 2 is your school leadership team schedules a meeting with the IDOE STEM specialist to discuss self-evaluation, your Google site evidence, guidance, and the application process. And at that time, we can answer any questions that you have and give you some feedback. And then step 3 is the school leadership team members will use the Google site template to showcase evidence of elements in the STEM certification evaluation rubric. And then you'll complete a Google form to obtain your Google site template, and we'll send that over to you once you fill that out. Step 4 is that someone from outside of the school building will use your STEM certification evaluation rubric to evaluate your site, and they'll check to make sure all of your links are working. And step 5 is your school leadership team will submit your Google site using the form here by October 28th, 2022 for this process. And then on to step 6, once your site is submitted, we will review the Google site using that 2022-2023 K-8 STEM certification rubric. And then all applications will receive specific feedback in a preliminary score report, which we will send to you. And after receiving that report, all schools will have the opportunity to submit additional evidence by January 13th, 2023. And all applications scoring a minimum of 57 points and obtaining a required score of 3 on all 10 of the essential elements after the rescoring will be contacted to schedule a site visit. And then submission scoring fewer than 57 points will receive feedback on their final score report and won't receive a site visit. One thing that is different this year is recertifying schools are not required to have a site visit. I think we've done that before actually too, but that's reiterated in this process. And then step 8, as part of the site visit, IDOE's STEM certification team will utilize the K-8 STEM certification site visit evaluation tool, which is new this year. And a school must earn all 10 essential site visit elements, and those are listed in gray to be awarded STEM certification. And we can drop all those links in the chat too in a second. And then after that, you have embargoed certification status, and a final score report will be provided within 1 week of your site visit. And then all applications receiving a minimum score of 57 points with a required score of 3 on all 10 essential elements and a minimum score of 10 with all of those gray site visit elements earned will be designated as a K-8 STEM certified school by the IDOE STEM team. And this designation again will be embargoed until the official announcement is made via press release for the 2022-2023 school year.
So what does secondary STEM certification process look like? And it's important to note that secondary STEM certification is slightly different than what the K-8 has put out. In this new guidance, the STEM leadership teams are required to meet with IDOE STEM specialists about essential element 1. We like to be notified of that meeting by September the 16th. And so that is really the crux of your entire application. It's how you define your STEM program, and we want to be as helpful as possible in the curation of that piece. This ensures that the STEM leadership team also has a chance to receive feedback on the defined STEM program prior to application submission. This is because in secondary STEM certification, there's only one chance to submit an application. So after your Google site is submitted, the IDOE STEM team will review and provide you with a score report. As I mentioned previously, schools who do not earn the required number of points on the essential elements and the additional showcase artifacts will earn the designation of developing and be invited to a learning series developed to specifically help schools in targeted areas around secondary STEM certification. So after the school reports are released, the IDOE STEM team will schedule site visits for the schools earning at least 41 points on the essential elements and the additional showcase artifacts. We have provided a site visit evaluation rubric to help schools determine, just like the K-8 group has done, what our team will be looking for. Our essential elements are in gold, and I will drop that link in the chat as well. I think I'm going to kick it back over to Kaylee for question 3.
I do want to jump in really quick. We did have a submitted question related to the success rate for applicants and what % of schools that apply in a given year earn certification. So I just want to clarify that there's not like a quota or anything like that is aimed to be met. It's really just, it comes down to schools that apply and whether they are ready and are able to meet sort of those indicators that are laid out through the guide and the rubric. So again, there's no quota as long as schools who apply are ready and are able to sort of demonstrate those meeting those elements in the rubric, then they would be able to earn certification. So that's why we really encourage schools to engage in sort of those reflective processes on the earlier end of things, and then also engage with our team to clarify any questions and things of that nature to ensure that schools are ready when they submit their applications.
All right, question 3, what is the best way to get started? We recommend building a STEM leadership team with interested teachers in your building, having regular meetings and taking notes during those meetings. We have a K-8 self-assessment tool to utilize to see where your school is in the process. And this evaluation tool reflects much of what evidence is asked for on the K-8 rubric. And the same holds true for the secondary STEM certification self-evaluation. Once your school is ready to begin the process, you should begin collecting evidence. And we recommend making a folder for each element to help sort all of the evidence that you collect. And once you feel like your application is ready to submit, find an outside reviewer to look over your application and give you some feedback before your final submission.
I'm going to take question 4. So question 4 is, can an individual teacher become certified? So there are a couple parts to this to my response. The first is not through this particular process. This particular process is really about full school certification and or the certification of STEM programs within schools. But I do want to bring attention to a few different educator licensure areas, some of which are relatively new that I just wanted to raise some awareness on. So recently, 2 new license areas were developed, those being elementary STEM and elementary mathematics specialist. And so if those are some areas where you're interested in earning some additional credentials or getting that license edition, those as well as the P12 computer science license edition might be a few that you might look into. So again, individual teacher certification wouldn't be through this particular process, but a way that you might think about it would be through the addition of additional license areas on your teaching license.
Okay, so question 5 is, does a school district need a STEM plan in order to apply? Yes. Your school should have a STEM plan, a mission and vision statement. The mission and vision statement should be tied to Indiana's priorities for STEM education plan. And we will ask you to include your STEM plan as part of your Google site. And the review team will look for thoughtful planning in your application.
Question 6 asks us, what does IDOE look for in a site visit? So as part of a site visit, IDOE STEM certification team will revisit the school's Google site and compare it with the additional evidence and supporting documentation obtained on that day. A preliminary score and embargoed certification status will be shared with the school leadership team at the conclusion of the site visit. Should virtual sites visit be necessary, the school leadership team will share video tours of students and staff interviews with the IDOE STEM team. Embargoed certification status will be provided within 1 week of each visit.
Question 7. Question 7 is, how do schools know when they're ready to apply for STEM certification? So this is really up to your school and your STEM team. Here are a few questions you should ask to see where you stand. How established is your program? Do you have required data collected? And pay close attention to the metrics on the rubric and essential elements. What are your strengths and areas for improvement based on your self-assessment? And we're always here to answer any questions you have about the process and discuss your school's readiness for applying, so don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, questions 8 and 9. So question 8 is about what does the STEM advisory board look for in different schools, and do all partners need to be from the STEM field? So the STEM advisory board can include members of your STEM leadership team, but the board should also include community members and other partners within your STEM story. While all partners do not need to be from sectors in the STEM field, rosters, agendas, and minutes should be provided that showcase how board feedback and informed decisions and revisions in your STEM programming within your school. Board members, therefore, should be able to provide thoughtful feedback regarding STEM work in your building. And then question 9 asks about, is a STEM plan vision the same as a school vision? And so typically the STEM plan vision is aligned to the program within the school and is separate from the school vision.
Let's take a look at question 10. On element 1.6 on the STEM certification rubric, it states that schools should engage in 5 activities of the 7 that are listed. Number 5 states STEM career, community, or business presentations. To clarify, are the students presenting to an audience, or does it mean that the students attend presentations? So this could be asking community partners to help join STEM career fairs or host presentations for your students. Examples of evidence for this could be a flyer for your school's STEM career fair, or posting your calendar of community events where local STEM businesses or STEM community partners come in to talk to students about job opportunities. And then question 11. On element 4.4 on the STEM certification rubric, it states a need for transportation options, as well as before and after school activities. Are the schools required to provide additional before and after school transportation for any STEM activities? Please clarify how many before and after school activities need to be offered to meet this element. Okay, so yes, to earn a score of 3 on this element, before or after school activities must be available and accessible by at least 50% of your students. And evidence for this element does include providing transportation options to students. There's no magic number of extracurricular activities your school should have. You just need to make sure that the STEM activities you do offer are available and accessible to a minimum of 50% of your student population to earn that score of a 3. And then we are going to talk a little bit about timeline and submission reminders. So both applications, whether you're K-8 or secondary, are due Friday, October 28th, and you can find those submission links here, and we'll drop those into the chat for you. The first one will be the K-8, and the second will be the secondary. Okay. And then we want to go over the K-8 STEM certification timeline. These are important dates that you need to know. So we released all elementary and middle school new guidance in May. And then, as I stated, your submission is due October 28th. On Wednesday, November 23rd, applications will be reviewed by IDOE. And we'll review those as they come in, and they will be reviewed by November 23rd. And then by Friday, December 9th, application feedback will be provided to schools. On January 13th, schools will provide additional application evidence. And then the second round of feedback will be provided to schools by February 3rd. And then by April 14th, 2023, all of our site visits will be conducted and completed. And then that tentative date is May 8th for our official announcement of STEM certified schools for K-8.
And so for secondary, I just want to remind you that there's only one application round, and so our timeline's a little bit condensed. We did release this guidance in July, and we are asking that you notify us of your required Essential Element 1 meeting by the 16th, which is in a couple of weeks. And then applications are still due the same day as the K-8 on Friday, October 28th. We'll do a quick scoring, and you'll be notified of a potential for a site visit by Friday, December 9th. And then we'll start scheduling those visits, again, with a tentative launch date of announcements on May the 8th in 2023. And I'm going to kick it over to Amanda McCammon to close this out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Great information as always. So thank you so much for engaging with us again today. Just a little bit of background around STEM Synergy and Keep Indiana Learning. STEM Synergy is the STEM leg, as I like to say, of Keep Indiana Learning, which is a division of Central Indiana ESC. But we do provide services across the state in lots of different ways as it relates to STEM education. So one of the things that we do is in partnership with the DOE and support around STEM school certification. And we actually are going to have a couple of just open support sessions for schools that are applying this year, both in the KA and in the secondary space. We'll lead those through STEM Synergy and Keep Indiana Learning. And I'm going to drop a couple of links for you to register for these open sessions within the chat now. The first one is the September link, and it's going to be September 26th from 3:30 to 4:30. And then we're going to offer the second one in October. And we realize this is just right before it's due, but it's really just for that just-in-time support for schools that maybe just need to bounce some things off of someone, ask a few clarifying questions. I always encourage you to reach out to DOE if it's something super urgent or you want a direct answer from them. But if for some reason we know everybody's busy, maybe you just didn't have that opportunity or you need someone else to reach out additionally to DOE, I'm able to do that with them too. We work very closely together, and so I can always tap into their expertise too if needed. So please take a look at those registration links and definitely schedule for your leadership team or someone from your leadership team to participate in one of those open sessions. Also, something that we are offering is just customized support specific to STEM school certification. So we have this support package we've put together. There's a little graphic there on the right-hand side giving you an idea of some of the things that you can get within that support package. This would really be for schools that are looking for application next year. We're a little close to the deadline to jump in with this now, but if you've not gotten your outside reviewer, STEM Synergy can help with that as well for this year. So if you're interested in talking about what this customized support package could look like for your school in the future, if you're looking at applying in the future, then just reach out to me and we can have a conversation about what that could potentially look like for your school. Here's some helpful resources and links, some of which were addressed in the DOE's presentation around K-8 certification, as well as secondary certification. The one that I wanted to touch briefly on was the fact that we also, through STEM Synergy, have a short self-assessment. You can access that from our website, and I am going to drop that link into the chat for you to access our needs assessment. And what I want to hit on here is the fact that the needs assessment through STEM Synergy is different than the DOE's STEM certification self-assessment, both for K-8 and for secondary, but they're very well aligned. They're very similar in terms of the context of what we're asking for schools to look at. The difference is that the one through STEM Synergy, you'll get a copy of that, but then that comes directly to me to provide support through STEM Synergy to those schools prior to you going and doing the ones with DOE. So it's not in lieu of, it's just an additional step for additional support prior to going to the forms through DOE, which then that data will go flow back up through your application process and to Department of Education. So again, there's going to be a link there in the chat and for you to access that form directly. And I would suggest taking a look at that as you're developing your leadership team and as you're taking those first initial steps into application or considering application prior to submitting the forms to the Department of Education. And lastly, just thank you for attending today. We appreciate your time. We know everyone's busy, especially in the morning on a school day, but very good information for the Department of Education. The links are provided both in the chat and then also within the slides themselves. Reach out to schedule a call with STEM Synergy and with me directly if you need some additional support or want to consider some customized support around STEM school certification for your school or for your educators. This presentation it was recorded and it will be available on the Keep Indiana Learning On Demand library shortly after we conclude today. So thanks again, and thank you to DOE for all your great information.
Thank you, and likewise, if there's any way that our team can support, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help however we can. So have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.